Hello everyone, welcome to the How to Create Explosions in Unity tutorial. My name is Rafael Josevar and I'm going to show you how to make these effects using particle system so that you can use those effects to enhance your game. What I'm about to show you is just the first step to create this explosion effect. After you learn how to make it, you can customize it the way you prefer and even add more effects such as sound, a shockwave effect, or change the colors, and etc. For this tutorial, you're going to need to know a little bit of Unity, like be familiar with the UI, the game object, materials, the components, etc. If you are a beginner, a good way to start is to watch the first series of tutorials from unity3d.com to get familiar with the tool. Also, if you're not familiar with programming, don't worry because I'm not touching any code today. Here's the Unity interface with our new project. So you see that my current scene is empty except by those two objects, the main camera and the directional light. You see that the name of the scene is called Untitled. So let's change that. Let's create a folder called underline scenes and let's save. So go to File, Save Scene, and let's call this scene main, and let's put it on our recently created folder. So save, and you see that now the scene name is changed to main, and we have our main scene here. Now we're ready to go. Let's start by creating an empty game object. So to do that, go to the Hierarchy tab, right click here and create empty. Let's call this explosion. So this is going to be our explosion object. And inside this object, let's put the effects inside. So right click here and create empty again. So the first object will be the fireball effect. And let's create another one to hold our smoke effect. So we're gonna have two effects, the fireball and smoke. And we want this object, the explosion object, to be a prefab. A prefab is an object which is customized and you can reuse throughout the game. So to create a prefab, let's create a new folder here to hold our prefab. So underline prefabs, I like to put the underline to be on top. To create a prefab, just drag and drop here to the project tab. And you see that this game object now is blue, which indicates that this is a prefab. To create the effects, we're gonna need two assets, one for the fireball and one for the smoke. So for this tutorial, I'm gonna use a sprite sheet for the fireball, which is a simple image sequence of this explosion animation, and this one for the smoke. So you can find many sprite sheets and image on the internet, but for this demonstration, I'm just gonna use those. So to import them into Unity, you just need to drag and drop them inside. So just hold and drop. So you see they are here. So to keep them organized as we did with the prefab and the scenes, let's create another folder, materials, and let's select those and put inside. So the project is now better organized. So let's start by creating the fireball effect for the explosion. Let's start for this guy here. The first thing is to add a particle system component. So if you type parts, particle system, you can find it here. And you can see here in the scene view that the particle system started to emit some particles. They are pink because there's no material attached to it yet. So the particle system, there's a lot of settings you can change. You can change the duration, looping, start speed, lifetime. So the first thing we're gonna do is to put a material on this pink stuff. To do that, scroll down to the render component and expand it. So you can see here that there is no material attached yet. So the material we want here for this is our explosion material or sprite sheet. So to put this here, we're gonna need to create a material component. Here in the materials folder, right click and create a material. So let's call this material explosion material. Okay. As this, we're gonna use this for a particle system. Let's use the particle particles shader. So you can go here in particles and select additive. Then you drag our explosion texture and put it here. So now if we go back to the fireball game object and go to the renderer, we can just go here in the material setting, click here and select our explosion material. As you can see now, the textures changed. Instead of pink, we have our textures, but that's not exactly the effect we want. So we want to animate this sprite sheet. To do that, we need to check the texture sheet animation setting on the particle system. You're gonna input here in the X and Y the numbers of tile sprite sheet has. So for this sprite sheet, I know that I have 6 columns and 6 rows. So if I put 6 and 6 here, you can see that the explosion now started to play. Now we just need to change those settings to be just one explosion, one big explosion. So let's review the settings. So the first thing we want to change is the start speed. So we don't want any speed to start. We want to set this to 0. We want it to be in the same place, in the same position. For the fireball, we just want to have one particle. So let's change to 1,000 particles to 1 particle. All right, that's better. If you go to emission here and rate over time, we don't want the more particles to be emitted each second, so we can change this to 0. And what we want is just a burst. A burst is like play all particles in one instant. So let's add a burst here. So a burst, I'm gonna throw all particles, which is 1 particle. So let's change to 1 particle when it starts playing. So when it starts playing, it's gonna just emit 1 particle. All right, so the next thing is to the simulation speed. You see that this is kind of slow. One thing we can do is to go here in simulation speed, which is 1. Let's increase this a little bit. Let's see how 2 looks. Okay, that's a little better. Let's put 2.5. All right, that looks cool. Another thing we need to configure is the shape. The shape is how this particle is being emitted inside this shape. So it's being emitted randomly inside this cone shape. You can see here this blue space. So we don't need that. We want it to play just once in the point of origin. So we can uncheck that. We don't need the shape. Cool, so that's it for the fireball effect. Remember to apply the prefab, so let's save our explosions. So hit apply, so it's saved. And remember to save the project as well, so go file and save scene. Now that we have our fireball effect, we can go for the smoke effect. So let's do the same thing that we did for the fireball. So go to smoke and add component and particle system. So I got another particle system without the materials for the particle. For this material, go to renderer, and then again you see there's no material attached, and we want our smoke in this material. So right click here, create material. Let's call this the smoke material. Smoke material. Again, as we are dealing with particle, let's select a shader for the particles. I think in this case you can select soft. So again, drag smoke, the texture, and put it here. All right, so go back to the smoke, go back to the renderer component in the particle system, and drag and drop the smoke material here. Okay, that's better. Now let's configure this. There's a lot to do. So we see here that we have 1,000 particles for this. Maybe you don't need so many particles, as this may affect the performance in your game. So let's put this to 50. I think 50 is a good number. In the emission, we don't want the rate over time. We can set this to 0. Instead, we want to add a burst. So we want it to play all particles at once. So as we have 50 particles, let's put 50 here and 50 here. All right, so that's being emitted all particles at once. As we can see here in the game, the camera is pointing in that direction. So let's go to the camera view. And we can see that the direction is wrong. They're being thrown in the Z direction. So let's point this upwards. Let's rotate this, the smoke component. Let's put minus 90 here. So it's going to the right direction. We want the smoke to go up. The speed is too high. The speed is too high. Let's reduce this. And we also want to add some randomness to the smoke. We don't want it to seem the same every time we play the smoke. So to do that, we can add some randomness in the speed. So let's put random between two constants. Let's put this 0 and let's put this 1. All right, it's getting better. Other randomness we can add is start lifetime. So start lifetime, let's put the same thing. Let's put maybe 2 and 3, which is for how long these particles are alive. So between 2 and 3 seconds. So you see that now the particles just die over the lifetime. Maybe we can add some randomness from the size too. So let's put here, starts from 1 to 2. So we can have smaller ones, bigger ones. We can also add some rotation maybe. So let's go here, constant. Let's add some rotation. So every time a particle is emitted, it's being picked random numbers between these two constants that we are listing here to add some randomness to the effect. Now we can go to the shape. In this case, we want to have a shape. So we want a cone effect. All right, so let's adjust these cones. Let's make the base a little smaller, something like that. And here on the top, a little wider. That's better. All right, let's adjust the color now because it's all white. To do that, we can add the color over lifetime here. Maybe we can start with the smoke a little more like grayish, something more like that, and then go to something like that. That looks more like smoke. A little bit. Another thing we can adjust is the force over lifetime. So we want this the particle to increase the strength once it goes up. Now that we rotated, we need to change the z-axis. So let's put here a random between two constants. Let's put 0.5 on the z and 1. So now it goes upwards, you see. That's a little better. One last thing is to uncheck looping because we don't want to loop. So let's see how it looks right now. That looks cool. All right, so we have our explosion effect now. Just go to explosion and remember to apply your prefab and save your scene. So here's our explosion effect. Of course, you can keep customizing it. You can change the color, you can add sounds, you can add the light. You can customize it according to the needs for your game. So in order to use that, you can either go to Asset and Export Package, or just replicate the same configurations we did in your game with your configurations. To test our prefab in action, I got the Tanks project available from the Unity website. And then I replaced their explosion effects by our explosion effects instead. So every time you shoot, we can see our explosion there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please like the video, subscribe for our channel, and keep looking our next tutorial. See you in the next video.